Hey there, Star Wars fans. Welcome back to Hyperspace Hangout. I'm Matt.
And I am Ez. And friends, we are back with a nice, big, juicy topic for you today. Will Cara Dune return to Star Wars? I think so.
I do too.
God. And it's like maybe it's time, it's beyond time. So if you guys haven't seen recently the news out there with this Disney lawsuit, man, like this, was it expected? Was it unexpected? I've seen all sorts of different reasons. Dude, I've seen people saying that like the only reason this lawsuit went through was because Trump is currently the president and all this. Guys, the lawsuit went like it's settled, right? That's the thing, is that they actually came to an agreement. They settled the lawsuit. Gina Carano was fired. She was let go essentially from Lucasfilm, and they had some choice words for her back in the day on social media. They disagree with what she was saying on Twitter at the time. And then Elon said, was anyone hurt? Was anyone hurt on my platform for voicing their opinions? And she just went, me, right? She's like, I think I was, And so he then gave her the money and funded her sort of lawsuit against Disney and Lucasfilm. And finally, just over this past summer, a month ago, I think, less than that even, they basically came out and said that they settled and they're all honky dory, right? It feels like they even gave her like a good recommendation. They even said they're looking for opportunities to work together. So that to me means Star Wars. Like they've got to bring her back as Cara Dune. They're not going to put her in some Disney, as a Disney print. I don't know. What is it? Another project? Is it something small?
I think she's coming back to Star Wars.
Yeah,
100%. And look, I actually posted. We talked about this actually on the Flannel Wizard. We channel. We talked about that on your YouTube channel, and I made a short about it, a TikTok about it, and somebody commented, and they were like, "Yeah, they're going to bring back the woman who sued them." Well, what's her name? Scarlett Johansson. She was very vocal, and I believe what's her name sued them. God, I'm gonna blank on her name. Emma Stone, who was in Cruella, right? And she was in the second. Because there was a whole big deal. You go back to COVID. Remember, it was the streaming. It was when movies were going straight to streaming instead of hitting the theaters. And there was a big part of that because there's like royalties and money involved in everything. And clearly, Scarlett Johansson and them are on good terms again because she's supposed to be in Avengers Doomsday, right? Because she's Black Widow and a big deal. So these companies, you're talking about multi-billion-dollar companies. They don't, if they feel like they will make more money, they will bring you back. They don't care what you did. If Jonathan Majors, who got in all the trouble over Kang, if it had seemed like it's not that big of a deal, they would have kept them. No question. His controversy was too big. Right. I mean,
right. Well, I've even heard that there was a report. I mean, it's a report. I don't know if there's any validity to it, but they're considering him again. Like there was some consideration for something, in this multiverse sort of situation. So like to your point, it's like if they think they can make money and they think, or even the losses. Here's the other thing too. They're weighing the losses in those lawsuits too. Like how much are they going to have to pay versus just saying, we don't want to lose that money. Also, we might even make more money just by bringing her back. And
even it sounds like Disney has reached out to Johnny Depp. And remember, he seems like, I don't want anything to do with them anymore because they screwed me over and all this stuff. And it's like he went through all that controversy with Amber Heard and everything. You don't they might that's the thing. If they thought for a second, hey, we could bring Johnny Depp back, we could make another Pirates movie, it'd make $1 billion. Both sides, they would come to an agreement.
Oh, right? For sure. Yeah, 100%. And that's exactly what they're doing. I mean, like he for the next Pirates movie or whatever, it just goes. We mentioned this in the last episode that we did again, where we talked about this topic with John Boyega and his like all the PR stuff that they had going on in Asia that they kind of altered and changed things because they didn't put him or they minimized his figure like on the poster, right, so that they could make more money or they could attract more customers because that's what their data sort of told them to do. They're this data-driven, money-driven company, and people sometimes forget that. It's just like these are real people, real actors who are coming in. They're getting a job at this studio, at this company, moving here, moving there, and they have to negotiate all that sort of stuff. And that's a lot, man. And I just feel like people kind of, if people don't think that she's coming back, I don't get it. Also, there's a huge subgroup in this. Well, that's not even it's just a huge group of people in the Star Wars fandom that want her back as Cara Dune. And I think she would make a very interesting story going into. I even heard that she's already done some cameo work in the Grogu movie, the Mando Grogu movie.
Could be.
I've heard that that's actually happening.
And that doesn't. And by the way, real quick, that doesn't mean that we agree with the things that she said on
no,
right? Because what she ultimately sued for was wrongful termination, because she felt like, and we don't know what and clearly they settled, which means that Disney wasn't willing to sit there and say, well, our contract says this is the things you can and cannot say on social media. So if that wasn't in there, then like, again, doesn't mean I agree with what she said, but
yeah.
I mean, it sounds like Disney was willing to back down on that, who has way more money than Gina Carano does. So it sounds like maybe Disney was like, it's more beneficial for us to settle, which also goes back to the thing I said years ago.
Yep.
About the whole, if Disney thought for a second they could make more money with her than without her. And I remember I got eviscerated. I remember people were messaging me like, no, dude, Disney's doing what's right. They're standing up. If Disney wanted to stand up for what's right, they wouldn't have settled with her.
For sure. And that this
right?
People will, yeah.
If they wanted to stand, if Disney said we're going to stand up for what's right, then you would, with all of your billions of dollars, use every lawyer you have to prove that she wasn't wrongfully terminated. But the fact of the matter is that sounds like she probably was to some degree, and that's why you settled.
Yeah, for sure. I actually think going into Discovery, somebody tweeted out, they said, what are the Lucasfilm or Disney sort of powers that be there hiding in their emails? Like what was the conversation? Like, were there conversations about her, and was that going to come forward or be subpoenaed? I don't know, whether they had the power to do all that or what was all in play, but if you're worried it's going to hurt you and your public relations, right? You don't want to go through with it, especially if you know they're going to find something in that process that makes you look really bad, tanks your stock, or sort of alienates even more of your fan base. Like that's something they probably couldn't afford. So yeah, there's multiple kind of aspects to this, but at the end of the day, people were looking at this case to see like, okay, can a company do this? Can a company, even though like they hired her, she had a contract, she was in these movies, she had this role, it was really taking her big time. She talks about like the trajectory of her career and where it was headed, and how this derailed and sort of like a lot of opportunities that would have come with the Cara Dune character, right? Yes, are now squandered, because if one big studio like this can't support you, other ones are not going to as well. They're all kind of like interconnected that way. So it was a big deal to see whether or not she was actually going to win this, or if Disney was going to win. Because if Disney wins, then like you said, they stood their ground. They said, no, we as a company are allowed to make this termination because we didn't agree with what you said on Twitter. I'll give you an example. If I say something that is morally, I don't know, gray, wrong, or a little bit politically charged as a teacher, gone.
Because you have a
morality clause in my contract. And I also kind of fall under my just my professional responsibilities, sort of my code of ethics as a teacher, right? That's something that I agreed to, that I signed up for. So I know that if I go out and make those statements, that I'm actively violating the thing that I agreed to. So what we all kind of wondered was, is she violating some sort of agreement that she had with Disney? And we can't tell. We can't tell now, because Disney basically said, hey, we're gonna settle this. And was it too egregious? Was it not? Were they overreacting? Did they overstep? What's the whole situation here? So it is just kind of interesting. I said to you, it's kind of ironic that you have this strong female character in their stories, this strong female actress who is voicing her opinions, her free, like her again, like her right to kind of free speech and say what she wants, and they silenced it essentially. Like they definitely did not want her speaking her mind. That was her mind. Those were her thoughts. They didn't like them, and so it didn't align with their messaging, and so they fired her. And now it seems like, and they actually even put out a statement where they said something to the effect of like, that her colleagues, her director, and other cast members and stuff supported her and thought highly of her. All this kind of stuff. Like, they didn't directly say that they themselves were in support of that tweet or the things that she said, but overall, in general, this person was a good person and that she had a very good character reference from other people, which ought to be a lesson to folks on the internet, that when you say one thing, it should not define, I don't believe, your entire being and your entire character because you said one thing. All right. It's just, yeah.
Right. Because again, like I don't necessarily agree with what she said, but at the same time, it does often feel like Disney, and this is my problem is more so with Disney in that I feel like they just love to pick and choose when they want to play politics.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and we've talked about this in Star Wars for years. Like in the Kenobi show, it felt like, oh man, like they were putting out all of this statement that if you don't like this, it's because if you don't like Reva, it's because you're racist. It's like, no, maybe people didn't like Kenobi because it was not a very good show.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe people didn't like The Acolyte, not because we were sexist towards female characters, because it just simply wasn't a good show. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, this is something we've said for years is they talk about like Star Wars fans just don't want to see strong female actresses, but actually we liked Ahsoka and we loved Jyn Erso.
Yeah.
We loved
Leia
Padme
at the beginning.
and Leia, you know, and like there's still so much hangover from the sequels. Right. And it's like I could point to a million things wrong with the sequels that have nothing to do with Rey. I mean, like, but she kind of got the blunt of it. And it felt like that just rippled down the Star Wars fandom for like 10 years. As it felt like it was all about like, well, if you don't like Rey, then you're sexist. It's like, actually, I don't think Disney liked Rey because they essentially wrote her out of the second movie. I mean, like, what's she do? She lifts rocks.
I know.
She literally told Rey to go kick rocks. I mean,
that's what they told her. Right. So that's a great way to put it. Is that like, it's you guys who didn't like Rey. You didn't like Rey's character enough, and you didn't put enough effort and energy into making that character something that was going to be well received by your fandom and celebrate, because if it is well received, as Matt has said many times, there'd be more merch, there'd be more stories, there'd be more comics, there'd be this expansion out and around the sequels that would have happened. Same thing for Finn and John Boyega's character. You did not respect his character either. You had no plan. His own words, they had no plan for me and my character. There was no place for me. And again, whatever it was, sort of their analytics or something that they just sort of, he took a back seat, man. We still don't know what it is that he wanted to say to Rey. It's just like,
it's also like it felt like Disney put us in this position where it's like, if you don't like Rey, then like you think Daisy Ridley is a terrible actress. And it's like, that is not the case whatsoever. Right. Yeah. And it's like, and then Rose, same thing. It's like, oh man, people just don't like Rose. It's like, there's no reason to. Like there was like the third movie, they just write her character off, right? And like, that's like been the whole issue. That was the whole issue with the sequels, the whole issue with the Acolyte. But at least now it's like, thank God Andor season 2 happened, because it's putting us back on the right track. You have a thought? I don't want to stop you, but I do want to ultimately get to like how we think things could be different, or if Cara Dune does return, ultimately, how does that work like story-wise? Because I think that's a fun path to explore.
Yeah, sure. Let's get there in just a second. Real quick, I just want to say, because you made a really good point, if they really cared about the Rose Tico character, they would have done so and shown that in Rise of Skywalker. They actually disrespect her character, and they completely sideline her. They could have doubled down with fans and said, no, this character is important. Let me show you why.
Give us a reason why.
And instead, they basically said, actually, I guess you guys are right. We're not going to really say it, but we're just going to show you on screen. Showing versus telling, way more important. So on the screen, we see her just take a literal back seat, and you had no plan for her story moving forward.
And I have a great analogy, and then we can get into it.
Yep.
Okay. So two of the biggest video games that have come out in the last like 7 years, right? The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, right? One game of the year, massive game. And this is just a difference of how companies view things. So in the Breath of the Wild, right, one of the biggest complaints was that you spend all this time, you can climb up mountains, you can do all this stuff. But then your weapons, they break, which is the first time it had ever happened in the Zelda franchise. And so you're constantly like going around and you're collecting weapons. So those were, and so that was one of the biggest complaints about the game. So when Nintendo releases the sequel to that, rather than saying, oh man, people like that, we should just like back completely away from it. What they did was they said, actually, we're going to take some mechanics and make it cool. So then they included this thing where you could like fuse weapons together. So it's like, all right, well, if I find a sword, now I can find a stick and I can like combine them and I've got a spear and it's a little bit stronger. So they literally said, here's something that was perceived as a weakness. How do we turn that into a strength? And this is, again, a company that's just as large. Yep. Actually, Nintendo might even be slightly bigger than Disney. But you know what I'm saying? It's like you have a team that like very careful. It's a very beloved franchise and everything. And they said, here, we're going to take what was perceived as a weakness and turn it into a strength. Star Wars does the opposite. They turn tail and run. Knee jerk, right?
Yeah, they do. They do. And that shows you a confidence in their leadership. And it just shows whether they're strong leaders or not. Like, I mean, that straight up, it's like, how are you going to move forward? And also to transition us into this Cara Dune situation, it's like, how are you going to take this settlement? How are you going to move forward in the right direction? Like, how are you going to confidently and boldly, without fear, just move forward and double down either on your mission or your agenda, whatever it is, and gain success. Like Matt said, take something that's broken and fix it. And put it on you to fix it instead of pointing back and saying, well, that's actually a pretty cool feature in the game and you guys just don't like it. And it's really on you guys. You guys should have liked it. It's like, what, dude, that's your job to make something that we like, that is reviewed well. And you have data coming back to you saying that, well, it's not really working. And you make it 2 to 3 to 4 times worse just by saying, well, if it didn't work, it's the fans' fault. And that's how fans feel, whether you think that's actually what you're doing or not. That is literally how a large majority of fans feel about your messaging, is that we think it's our fault because we didn't like the Acolyte. And it's like, what? I mean, but then Andor comes out and all over their social media, we're just blasting. It's just so celebrate. The fandom loved it, right? I mean, so what gives? What's the difference there? So anyway, yeah, I just think how they handle Cara Dune moving forward is going to be very interesting. Like, what role, how big of a role is she going to play? You could literally just swallow your pride or whatever. I don't know. Like they've settled clearly. So that's a good thing. It's a good sign that they just said, let's just bury it and look at this person as a whole and say, overall, she's a really good person. She's a strong female character. People like her. Boom. Let's put her back. And she's a part of your agenda, Matt. She's literally a part of furthering the actual thing that even Dave Filoni says he wants to do. They want to put more strong female characters in these stories. We've always been cool with that. We just want you to do those characters right. We want you to make them respectable, and we want you to give them the same hardships and struggles and stuff that our other male characters have, so that way they seem legitimate,
Right.
So
let's dive into kind of the ripple effect that I think happened, because you and I didn't really talk about a lot about this, and now we can, looking at it in hindsight, because who knows what the Mando Grogu movie is going to look like, and now Ahsoka and all this stuff is, we've said this before, is I feel like the Mando season 3 felt like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I still liked it. I had a fun time, but it definitely did not live up to seasons 1 or 2. 1 had this very unique, cool feel to it. 2 was just amazing. I mean, 2 is like some of the most peak moments in all of Star Wars.
Yeah.
But then like the Gina Carano thing happens, and I think that affected Book of Boba Fett. Right? Because now Book of Boba Fett got this whole episode of Mando in the back. Like, they feels like 2 totally different shows. Right.
Yeah, sure.
And I think part of that was the loss of Rangers of the New Republic, which was really going to be the Gina Carano led spinoff show with Katie Sackhoff, who, by the way, Katie Sackhoff just said did you see that interview with her?
No.
She had this interview where she said she said that like she had to take a break from acting because she struggled so much with playing Bo-Katan live on screen. She's like, I just couldn't get into her character. She couldn't figure it out. And it's like, but you, and she just it's a pretty interesting article.
Okay.
And she just talks about like how it's like totally different than voice acting the character. And she's like, I mean, I just struggled to find like the character's motivation. Just like a weird, I don't know.
Okay.
So interesting because like, just feels like you've voiced the character forever. You feel like right at home, but and it's we should talk. We should maybe next time we'll talk and read about it. It's just it's not like it's nothing dramatically bad or anything, but just like interesting that she kind of went through that.
Yeah.
But it felt like that was the route we were going, is they were going to be the ones to lead that show, which could have expanded. I mean, maybe that's where we could have got Cad Bane storyline, but instead they kind of wove Cad Bane into like Bad Batch a little bit with Finnick.
Yep.
And you missed that live action because so many people just won't even watch animation. And so I think we saw that ripple in Book of Boba Fett. I think we definitely saw that ripple in Mando season 3. And I think a lot of it has to do with like them firing Gina Carano. And for whatever reason, they also decided we're not going to recast the character.
Right, for sure. They just shuffle things around, and she just sort of I mean, they reference her, right? I think in season 3 or something like that, and just say she's off.
Right. Where she's I think they say she's with the she's a ranger or
with the Rangers. Yeah. Okay.
She's a marshal now or something. Yeah.
Right.
I think RIP man, Carl Weathers. He says I think he said like, yeah, she's with the New Republic again.
God, dude, and that's man, so it's just a shame we didn't get to see those two characters back on screen again one more time. So such a great actor, Carl. But yeah, I think you're right in terms of like this definitely derailed a little bit the Mandoverse. I don't think, and it was one of the biggest, probably most successful things that they had going for them is building this out. And you knew they were going to build out Ahsoka to kind of weave in between. We've said this often. They have Marvel where you're doing cameos where this character is showing up here. I mean, that's evident. Ahsoka's in Mandalorian season 2, and then she has her own show, right? That's exactly the start to this setting up these little cameo situations. Like Ezra Bridger's now back. He might hop in to like a Rangers show or something like that. That might have been their long-term goal with this. And then they fire her and they have to shove story into Book of Boba Fett because it feels weird. You know, Book of Boba Fett does feel
it feels like two different shows.
Yeah. Forced. And it was, I mean, it's almost like what is it? Like is that between season 2 and 3? Isn't it? Yeah. It's between season. Yeah. So it felt like it was like the season 2.5 or something, you know, for the Mandalorian, which was kind of weird. And then with Book of Boba Fett, like, who knows what, I mean, I'm not saying she would have been a part of that story, but maybe some of the Cobb Vanth stuff was played up a bit more than it was going to be. I don't know. That whole show just felt like it was a bit of a train wreck, and they didn't embrace the aspects of Boba Fett's character that I think they should have. I mean, nothing.
The timeline didn't make sense either.
No.
Like, you're telling me he was with the Tusken Raiders for like 5 years? Because it feels like he was with the Tusken Raiders for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that was weird. That was definitely they kept doing that flash back and forth. I know. And that's what they were playing into Tamora Morrison's like his heritage and stuff, and they were trying to kind of bring some of that to the forefront, which is fine, and which was that could have been cooler. I don't know that it was just strange, like him and the Tuskens, you know, of all the things that
well, it wouldn't have felt as weird if the show hadn't completely shifted gears and then gone in like the Mando direction, because literally then you go through an episode and a half of Mando, and then they bring in Cobb Vanth, but don't really explain who he is to people that have not watched animation. I mean, even when you see a character appear in a cameo, you still get enough of their backstory to need to understand why that character's so cool. Like we see that Marvel all the time.
Yeah.
But it's like they didn't explain it at all. They didn't explain that like they fought before or anything. So like I use, you know, like the casual audience of like my mom and, you know, my wife and stuff like that who watch the show, because Teresa refuses to watch animation. She's just like, that's for kids. Like literally will not do it.
Yeah.
And so when this guy shows up, she's like, who is he?
I know Cad Bane is just
they never explained it. And so I felt like Cad Bane was wasted.
Yeah, he was. It was strange. And then is he dead? I mean, what's the deal? It just felt underwhelming. And that could have been a character that maybe they had more plans for. I bet you if Rangers was a thing and that was actively going on, they were writing a story for that, they would not have killed Cad Bane. I bet you he would have been a villain that the Rangers had to kind of face and run down, and he would have been more involved in that crime syndicate. There was even talk that Kira's character was with Crimson Dawn. Like I don't know where her arc ends up in the comics, but there was talk that she's running Crimson Dawn and was going to be a part of that underworld that was sort of building and emerging that Cara Dune would be facing, you know?
Right.
So,
well, and look, we know Star Wars at Disney is like the B team to Marvel, maybe even C team, perhaps.
yeah, probably.
And there was an interview where James Gunn said that in Guardians, they said, "Hey, we need a backstory on the Infinity Stones. Like we've been kind of teasing it, but we're not like 100% of the way there." And so James Gunn said in a recent interview that he came up with that storyline, and like he's like, I sat down and wrote it out in like 5 minutes. Right. So if Marvel is doing that with like their entire original plot of the MCU, which felt like it was so completely 100% set up,
Right.
you know, Star Wars was like, all
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. It was crazy because it doesn't take. It's like I thought we haven't heard from Story Group in a long time. Like I remember
I don't know if they exist anymore.
I don't even know if they do either, because there was supposed to be like who's in charge of making those decisions and figuring out where the story is going. Because is it just Dave Filoni and John Favreau? Who's working over? Like Kevin Feige is overseeing the Mando verse and all of those products and everything moving out.
Acing MCU.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so is that what like whose role is that? Is that Kathleen Kennedy? Like who's overseeing?
Is it John Favreau?
Yeah, like who's no one really knows. It kind of feels like people have an idea and they say, yes, that's a great idea. Somebody else comes to Kathy and says, I have this idea. Okay, let's go with that. It just feels like ideas come to her and she either says no, or what do you think, Dave? Green light this. I'm not, again, trying not to be super critical, but you can't get a real feel or a real pulse on what's going on and what direction we're headed, because now you've even got Dave Filoni jumping back to Darth Maul, right? And again, cool character, and I love it and everything, but I just wonder if our focus is not all over the place, man. I wonder if they're just.
I've said I think Star Wars has a timeline problem right now because you're just jumping all over, like you jump back and forth between the timeline, and so you never feel like you're driving towards that. Look, we don't know what the next big thing is in Star Wars, right? Like we know with DC now, hey, they are driving towards a Justice League movie,
right?
We know in Marvel they're driving now towards Doomsday. Okay, big deal. Like I feel like there's a path ahead, whereas Star Wars, it feels like, well, maybe we'll plug this in, and maybe we'll plug this in, and maybe this will work, and maybe this will work. Because I think they tried it. They said we're going to go all in on High Republic because they thought it was going to be the next big thing, comics and comics and toys and all that stuff, essentially books and novels, and said we're going to drive heavy into this. Even Jedi Republic or Jedi Survivor. Here's a High Republic character. Then the Acolyte flopped so hard, I think it's like derailed the whole thing.
I think it has too. Well, and that's what I mean with your focus is like, if you are putting all of your eggs in that basket, you want your top Star Wars people. Like nothing against Leslie Headland, but hold on, I get we're all Star Wars fans and stuff, but you have people at the company who know it so well and who have been dedicated to it for years. She comes in and does her Star Wars project, and then she goes and makes another project for some other studio somewhere else, and she just moves along. You needed somebody to come in and not just like check, like, hey, is this okay? Like I know people are like, well, Dave Filoni looked it over and kind of greenlit. So, guys, he didn't write it. He's looking at like, what's he gonna do? Go back through major rewrites? And I don't know. Like it's you needed somebody who really knew Star Wars and who really made a high quality product. Like you should have triple checked that, and you should have ran it through. Again, how does a product that flop that hard and you don't know, and you're that caught off guard with it? It's hard for me to imagine, especially with all the data that they have from other shows.
I mean, clearly at Disney they know though, because like Elio, or I think was what it's called, was a Pixar movie that was coming out this year that Disney basically, in screen testing and everything, they're like, this is not going to do well. And it's like the worst performing Pixar movie ever. And they ran almost no ads for it because they knew it was going to flop. So clearly there's somebody at Disney who's like, all right, I've ran the analytics. I don't think this is going to work. How did they, I think they just thought, well, it's Star Wars, I think that is something that happens in Star Wars is they think, well, the fandom will just eat it up regardless of what it is.
Yeah. No, and I think they thought tons of lightsabers, big fights, and everything would make up for
and
stuff.
There are cool pieces of it. We've talked about
that. For sure. And they definitely, I mean, they were driving towards something. The Chimera character is actually pretty cool, and Darth Plagueis being in there is interesting. But there was a lot of they just squandered the Squid Game actor, man. They squandered Master Soul, dude. Like he could have been such a sick character.
You could bring him back for a prequel or something, or Force Ghost or something.
I know, but it just almost feels terrible. Like the way he ends up going, you're just sort of like, I know where this guy ends up. It sucks. And it just feels like I'm not invested in him at all. So that's kind of tough. Same thing with Vernestra Rowe. You're sort of like, okay, like
because we loved that book. Go back, listen. We had a episode. We loved that book.
Loved it and loved that character. And then I'm looking.
Master Douglas.
Master Douglas, dude, holy smokes. The Force came upon him and he knew that only he could do what a Jedi Master could do. And the sacrifice had to be made because young Vernestra, he could foresee was needed in the future. God, dude, talk about a master moment in Star Wars in a junior novel. My God, if you guys haven't seen that, just search Master Douglas. And I forget what that was called, but it was her first, Vernestra Rowe's first little,
wisdom, I think, or something.
Yeah. But anyway,
well, okay. Well, so we'll kind of drive home here.
Yep.
My question to you is, if Gina Carano does come back, and maybe at first it's a cameo, and now if we get like a Rangers of the New Republic, whether it's that show or it's a new or something like that. I don't know if she's going to be allowed to lead a show or who knows. But if she comes back and people want to see it and they feel like we can continue that path, now we'd be thinking about a Rangers post Thrawn, like running with Thrawn in this Mando, because I think we're still driving ultimately towards a big Thrawn war movie, something.
Right.
What do you think? What do you think that would look like? Because if she comes back, or like post Mando movie, what do you think needs to happen? And like Ahsoka season 2, what do you think is kind of gonna happen next?
Yeah, so for right now, if you were to pop into, let's say, Ahsoka season 2 or this Grogu movie, Mando Grogu movie, she should be investigating that Shadow Council. Like she should be looking at the remnants of the Empire and trying to figure out what is going on in the Outer Rim and the unknown regions. And she should be hearing whispers and scouting and kind of getting intel for the New Republic on that stuff. I think that would be really cool for her just to be out and about and really be sort of in the know. And she's this last sort of one of the last members of Alderaan, and she's practically a princess herself, and so it's like she could come back and just be somebody that communicates to, whether it's like Hera, General Syndulla, and talks to her about what's going on, and they're just conveying a lot of that information and trading knowledge, because the Shadow Council is out there. We saw that what was that in was that in Mandalorian season 3? I think it was, where you had Dr. Pershing. They killed him.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. They killed him. The cloning technology. That's a really good element. They're showing some these are fanatics, right? And it is super secret. There was rumors of Thrawn. Is he out there? Is he not? Now he's back. And so the Shadow Council and Moff Gideon, who knows, whatever, alive, dead. Are they going to bend the knee, if you will? Are they going to bow down and sort of all align and consolidate their resources with Thrawn? Could she sniff out some of that? Is, I think, her role moving forward, because she's just a ranger. She could be promoted through the ranks, but I think it's kind of cool just to have like this law dog running around, investigating things and picking up on rumors and stuff, and really tracking shipments of maybe weapons or whatever. That's the kind of stuff we want to see. We want to see her get into the criminal underworld, go undercover, whatever, and figure this out and be a major player for the New Republic. That's kind of the way I see her role. But I think she'll start off as cameos, and then I don't know if she'll actually ever get her own show, just because of all this stuff, which is a shame. I would love to see her get her own show. But even if she is maybe more than just cameos, and she has a couple arcs or whatever, an episode here or there, half an episode in Ahsoka or something where we really see her role and see how see if fans enjoy it. And then if you're Disney and you're looking at that money, then hey, maybe you just decide, we got to keep this character around and we need to run with this a little bit. It depends on how long they want to go with this big war with Thrawn. Like, what's it going to take to defeat Thrawn?
Should be like a trilogy. I mean, I think unfortunately is there so much of it depends on this Mando Grogu movie.
Yeah, it does. This and Ahsoka too.
It doesn't feel like they've got the conviction to say, like, we have like a trilogy planned. It's like, I think it's still kind of like we need to wait and see. Like, it needs to prove itself in order for us to commit to driving the rest of this forward.
But do you know what? I'm going to say something. It makes me, George Lucas, back in the day, he said this to Dave Filoni, and I hope Dave Filoni remembers this. He boldly, without fear, and this is what he's trying to teach his team. Do not worry about what people are going to say or think. Just do. Right? That was his whole thing. Just bring Darth Maul back. We're doing it. He just told the team. They're like, "Why? You cut him in half. Like you can't do that, George." And he said, "No, like I'm the creator. I get to do that." You now have the reins to Star Wars. If you tell us there's a trilogy, there's a freaking trilogy. And like this whole kind of having 1 foot in, 1 foot out is, again, weak. It is weak. It looks weak. It smells weak. We know it's weak. And then we can't get invested because we're sort of like, well, it looks like they're just going to kind of test the waters here. And then if it doesn't work out, they're going to bail. Right. And that, don't worry, because they have another project set up later on
that they never actually release.
Right. And I'm not saying this to be like super critical or upset with. I am a fan. I swear to you, I love Star Wars and I love a lot of what you've done. There's a lot of it that I don't like. It's just like, I want you to have a clear vision. I wish they would sit down and literally have a council meeting where Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, Kathleen Kennedy, I don't care who leads it. I don't care who's the head of the council. They need to meditate and find a vision in the Force and find a way forward at Lucasfilm and focus on their vision. It's literally what Qui-Gon taught them. Their focus will determine their reality. And instead, their focus is scattered. And so the vision in Star Wars is scattered. And like you said, maybe they do know that they're going to have 3 Thrawn movies or whatever. But it feels like, again, this is crazy. Going back to Rafe Judkins over in Wheel of Time, when he was talking about, well, we might only have 5 seasons. We might have 3. We might get 8. We're not sure. Well, how do you plan for that? Like, we're going to wait and see what the numbers are. You're Disney. You're not just some new, like brand new fandom that's starting or some brand new studio or whatever. You have the money. You have the funds. You can commit if you want to, and you need to commit. You need to commit to a vision and see it through. That's the problem. They do not see things through. Somebody starts and then they don't finish. And then we all go, well, like what? And like, maybe the start could be, like, let's say The Acolyte. Let's say it wasn't great, but you just said we have 3 more seasons. Okay, maybe it's going to get better.
Right, and then
maybe it's going to be sick.
You can say, here's what people didn't like about Acolyte season 1, because there's still pieces of it that were cool. Like Master Saul was cool.
He's cool.
Bringing in Darth Plagueis. Okay, I want to know why he was there, and you can like double down on that. Like, you should at least commit minimally to 2 seasons so you can say, hey, all right, the people didn't like it. Why didn't they like it? How do we improve upon it? But it just adds to the bigger pile of Star Wars. It's so difficult to get excited for the next Star Wars project when they announce a million things that never happen. Rangers of the New Republic, Lando, the Taika Waititi movie, the Dan and Dave from Game of Thrones movies, Rian Johnson trilogy, all of these things. It's like, I think like at Celebration, they're like, hey, we have Ryan Reynolds and or Ryan Gosling's going to be in a Starfighter movie. It's like, I'll believe it when I see it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's hard to get excited for it. You hauled Patty Jenkins out and had her drive around a freaking tarmac in a fighter jet. And so it's like, okay, at least we're getting something. And then it was on and off again. And so it's like when they announce new stuff, it doesn't feel exciting at all because you've never followed through.
Yeah. That is the biggest problem right now is there's no vision, no see-through, and they're letting certain things get in their way and they're tripping themselves up. I mean, it's not even the fandom anymore. We're honestly over here. We're so lost as a fandom that we're just sort of like, please, we're begging for something to come through. And Andor did.
Right. And then all of the stuff we get doesn't feel connected whatsoever, where when we do get something, it's like, all right, we're going to go back and do Kenobi. And then we're going to have Andor, which is a little bit before that. And then we've got Mando, which is like 20 years before that. And like, yeah, I mean, it's all connected to Star Wars, but it doesn't feel the same as like what DC is doing now. Like, hey, Creature Commandos, Superman, the Supergirl movies coming out next, Peacemaker. Like, it's all right there. And it feels like, okay, things feel must watch. Nothing in Star Wars right now feels must watch because it's just like, okay, well, then we're going back to Maul, and then we have Skeleton Crew, and like, you're just jumping all over the place. Right. And like, yeah, I mean, it still fits in the big Star Wars timeline, but it's hard to get excited for all of these things when it's like, I can go watch that whenever. it doesn't feel like I have to watch that to get
Right.
ready for the next thing. It feels like I can watch that whenever.
Yeah, like for example, Skeleton Crew is good, but like people are kind of like it's after Acolyte, they're like, okay, now we're jumping from something that's Acolyte to Skeleton Crew. Think about how different those are and where they are in the timeline. And people will say, well, I mean, you get a bad taste in your mouth with Acolyte, and then you go to Skeleton Crew, which is pretty good. It's actually pretty decent, very interesting. I kept wondering what's going to happen, but then overall, I'm like, is this going to matter? Should I really invest a lot of time in learning these characters and looking at some of the like the
theories they hint,
theories, yeah, all the
connections they try to make.
Right. Should I really invest all my time in that, or is this just going to be a back burner thing? Like that's what I think people are missing, because Marvel did it so well, where you could just sort of theorize about who would show up next, or what's going to happen, who's the big villain, what are they fighting towards, how are they going to defeat him, what magical objects are we going to need, and when are they going to get that mystical element back? They sort of a little bit with Dave Filoni. That's the thing. You got one guy who seems like he really has a finger, and I know there's many more of them at Lucasfilm that do understand this, but he's their creator that they're letting work on projects, writing and directing and so on, and creating, who knows about mysticism and who understands sort of the mythology that made Star Wars, and understands those sort of legendary tales, the epics, if you will, that make Star Wars. And so, yeah, that you want to know why Acolyte was a disconnect. It was some sort of weird detective thriller. It was just, it's stuff. So anyway, the hope here is, just as we wrap up, is that Cara Dune could be a path forward in Star Wars, where like they get back to some of those things that really make Star Wars, and that they start to kind of have a collective vision. And I hope it's all successful, because it seems like Disney it has to be successful, or we're going to stop it. So like Matt has often said, if this Mando Grogu movie flops, they're done. They might
reboot it.
They literally, I mean, do you know what the funny thing is? I've actually heard that the Rey movie, that this new Rey series, has the potential to do, I don't know if you've read this recently, but they hinted at it has like time altering.
That's actually what that remember the first Lego movie they did?
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah.
Right.
What I think is more likely is, I think if Star Wars, and we could actually do a full episode on this, I think if Star Wars were ever to reboot, they would go the Star Trek route. Remember when the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies, which J. Bear was there, maybe this works, and which actually is one of the coolest ways to do it, where they said, actually, we want to leave everything intact. And in a way, it is kind of a multiverse, right?
Yes.
But at least it wasn't like so crazy like we have in the Marvel right now, where they're just like, okay, it's just over here now.
Yeah, it's just
that's it. That's
parallel.
It's its own thing. It's kind of parallel, but you still brought like the one character over. That was like a cool way to do the multiverse.
Yeah.
Where you didn't feel like you have to connect every possible thing imaginable. It was like, nope, this is just, it was part of this. Here's a cool way to do it, and then it exists essentially completely on its own.
Yeah, dude. I mean, if they do something like that, then JJ should come back for that, because they knocked it out of the park, and they did a really cool element. This little reversals, little subtleties that made it different from the originals. It's a complete reboot. It was complete, and had old Spock. God, you still have Mark Hamill. You can still do this kind of stuff. Like it is possible. What, are they bold enough to do that? I doubt it.
No way.
No way, because they're not bold enough to really, I don't think, put forward, a statement that says, yeah, here's the amount of projects we're going to support in the Mandoverse. Everybody's sort of on pins and needles about like, well, how much time are they going to give us? And so then you're cramming more of your story, because you're not sure if you're going to get 3, seasons of Ahsoka. You're not sure if you're going to get 2 movies or 3 movies with Thrawn. You just don't know. And that's operating from a place of fear. And that is literally not the Jedi way. So,
well, end on a hopeful note, at least.
Right? Yeah. Well, yeah.
There is hope. We do hope. So, yeah, guys. Hey, with that, I want to thank you for hanging out in hyperspace. And as always, hey, if you guys want to send us a thought, opinion of your own, you can comment anywhere. You can find me anywhere on the internet at Super Gains Bros, as anywhere on the internet at The Flannel Wizard. If you like this podcast, hey, don't forget to subscribe, like us, leave us that review, or you can email us at hyperspacehangout@gmail.com.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks so much. We appreciate you. And as always, don't forget that traveling through hyperspace ain't like dusting crops.